5.8 million people in the United States suffer from Alzheimer's disease, and 50 million people around the world suffer from dementia-related disorders. But what are the implications of Alzheimer's? In fact, what is Alzheimer's? Think of a falling bookshelf. The books on top are your most recent memories, while the books on the bottom are probably the ones that you've had since your childhood. As the bookshelf is falling, the ones on the bottom are more stable and they're kept. But the top ones on the top, they're falling off. And you don't know what's happening. You just know that these are all gone. Biologically, Alzheimer's is characterized by a transformation of a healthy brain into a brain that doesn't really process the information very well. Beta amyloid plaques are cellular debris and parts of proteins that, when start off with a little bit, and they all kind of clump together. And they do disrupt a few neuron signals here and there, but it's not that bad. And then more accumulate, and they disrupt more synapses and more neurons. And eventually, the computer that is your brain is completely disconnected, and it has no way to discharge. Eventually, it just dies. And the process is already causing the death. Most characterization of Alzheimer's disease occurs post-mortem, where autopsy reveals the biological workings. Preclinically, the only way to do it is via brain imaging. However, there is an 85% success rate, and while that is pretty good, we cannot afford to do that only. So we've turned to specific biomarkers, ADDLs, or amyloid beta-dependent deep ligands, are essentially the small biomarkers that flow around your cerebral fluid. There wasn't much correlation, but they did know that it did show up whenever there was Alzheimer's disease. However, there are no specific ways to actually detect it because it's very weak and sends very slow signals in the fluid. So it's just really hard to detect. This is where biobarcoding comes into play. Biobarcoding is when we attach particles to DNA, and these DNA essentially act as barcodes, and they can tag on to these ligands. Let's go through the specific process of how it works. First, we have magnetic microparticles, which are floating around in the cerebrospinal fluid immunoassay. Note that this cerebrospinal fluid has been taken out surgically from the patient. After that, they are attached to an ADDL-specific antigen, and this is resulting in this really complicated binding system where the magnetic antigen is kind of attached together. We also have gold nanoparticles, and the thing about both of these is that the chemistry is very malleable and they can attach very well to different surfaces, hence why we're using these. And they also have very characteristic optical properties that send a really good signals about how the ADDL binding is working to the assay. So when it's bound, it's attached to the DNA barcode, and then it's put back into the cerebrospinal fluid. And as they are found, they attach onto these barcodes, and we quantify them using specific measuring techniques. And what we found was that there was a significant elevation of ADDL within cerebrospinal fluid after Alzheimer's onset had occurred. However, cerebrospinal fluid is really hard to obtain because it involves a lot of high-risk surgery. So we have to turn to other new methods in order for this to happen. Blood and urine diagnosis are the next steps here. However, there hasn't been much research done on this. This is what we need to take. We need to take action in figuring out the biomarkers in this case, and then to effectively diagnosing Alzheimer's based on that to a higher degree of accuracy. Thank you.